I am going to get better, and we are, the Freedom Caucus, are going to get better at putting the tools in the hands of the people who care about this country, who love this country, and want to see us succeed.
Keeping our republic is on the line, and it requires patriots with great passion, dedication, and eternal vigilance to preserve our freedoms. Jenny Beth Martin is the co-founder of Tea Party Patriots. She's an author, a filmmaker, and one of Time Magazine's most influential people in the world. But the title she is most proud of is mom to her boy-girl twins. She has been at the forefront, fighting to protect America's core principles for more than a decade. Welcome to the Jenny Beth Show.
I'm Jenny Beth Martin with the Jenny Beth Show, and today I have a very special guest. She is a friend, and she is a strong conservative. Her name is Connie Hair. I first met her when she was Congressman Louie Gohmert's chief of staff, and today she is the state director for Louisiana for the State Freedom Caucus Network. Connie, thanks so much for joining me today.
It's great to be here, Jenny Beth. I'm loving seeing you. It's been a while.
And in your home state, like where you grew up, right?
Amen. Oh, yeah.
So it's really good to be here in Louisiana. You've shown us around, made sure that we are eating really well.
Well fed.
And you're back in Louisiana after being in Washington, D.C. You were Louie's chief for how many years?
12 years.
For 12 years.
Yeah.
And
I still have my hair.
Which is more than he can say.
Exactly.
But in fairness, I don't know that he had it when he started out in that position. So I'm not quite sure about that. But he really is one of the greatest congressmen, in my opinion, of all time. Yes. I love Louie Gohmert. And you were so lucky to be able to work for him.
Yes, I was. He is the kind of legislator that he is thoughtful. He reads the bills. And once he makes up his mind, you can't change it. No one can change it. Not John Boehner, not Paul Ryan, not anyone.
Right.
Not Jim Jordan. Because he will never vote away on a bill that he cannot, from his heart, explain to his constituents. And he always could. And that was the secret to his success. No one understood that about Louie. He always could explain, even the tough votes, why he voted the way he voted. And so that was the secret to his success. That's why he was so popular with the people.
Right. And he wasn't in it to amass great wealth or to move up in political power or whatever else might
He was
motivate
the man
people
in Congress
to be there
every year.
Yeah, and he slept in his office too.
He did
when he slept, which wasn't very often.
Not in D.C.
Especially when you're reading all the bills, you don't get a lot of time. But I think that it is amazing that now that he's no longer in Washington, D.C., and I miss him there as much as you. I don't even like going to Washington without being able to go hang out with the two of you. Yeah. So, but now that he's no longer there, you're here, and this is so cool what you're doing here. Talk about what the State Freedom Caucus Network is and what it's doing in Louisiana and in other states around the country.
Well, the State Freedom Caucus Network was put together by the same people who formed the Freedom Caucus at Congress. Justin Ouimette, who you know well, he stood up the Freedom Caucus at the House, and he left the federal government to form this network of states where we help the state legislators. What most people don't understand is the state legislators, for the most part, are part-time. They are in Louisiana. They make a whopping $17,000 a year. And they have to be in a job where they can leave that position for however long the session is that year, or the special sessions, or the veto override sessions. In Louisiana, the House doesn't even have offices. They have a desk on the floor. They don't really have staff. They have a budget of $23,000 a year for all of their staff and their office space in their district and everything. Okay.
Wow.
You can't hire a lawyer or a legislative staffer for that kind of money. So a lot of the conservatives, all of the conservatives, were flying blind when you have the rhinos with the levers of power, and they all, get lawyers to read their bills. The last speaker even gave the Democrats 5 lawyers. But the conservatives had no one. They have to take word of fellow legislators who might be on the committee that particular bill is on. They're not on that committee, so they don't know the nuts and bolts of it. So what the Freedom Caucus is about is giving them professional staff for the first time. And that's what I did. I came here, started drinking out of a fire hose right when the session started. I read all of the bills. I did a bill breakdown on all of them, and I made recommendations on the next day's bills of and why. It is, I was 3, 4, 5 o'clock in the morning sometimes getting the vote recs out to the legislatures, but they've never had that. And how can you vote on something when you're not afforded the ability to even understand what you're voting on? And you have to take leadership's word for it, which they don't necessarily have your district's interests at heart. They're juggling many political balls. And we've all seen that in Congress. And it's even more sad here on a state level when you don't even have an office and even basic minimum staff that you do in Congress. You know what I'm saying? So they were floored when they saw what a professional staffer could do and hand them every day so they could understand what they're voting on. And it's just been the most rewarding experience. I love these people here. I grew up here. I love Baton Rouge. I love Louisiana. I've always loved it. And I think it's a very unique time when we have a new incoming governor. Jeff Landry should, for all intents and purposes, be our next governor. I say that with great hope for the future of Louisiana, because as we've seen it in the Attorney General slot with him, he has backbone. He stands up. He does what's right, and it comes from a principled set of values. Not preaching to anyone, but core values that made this country strong. The problem that we face today is most people don't know what liberty and freedom are.
Yes, it's so true,
how
Connie.
you go about keeping them.
Well, how can you keep it if you don't even know what it is?
Exactly. So that's core set of principles is what has always undergirded freedom and liberty. And we taught that in schools. We taught that to our children. We taught that to the community. Doesn't happen anymore. And that's, I believe, is by design. It's been a long, slow march through the institutions for Marxism. And we're now seeing very seriously damaging fruits of that effort. And the state legislatures are particularly vulnerable because they're understaffed, underpaid, they don't have any. So that's what the Freedom Caucus plans to do around the country. We're in probably 15 states by the end of this year, and we plan on growing until we have all of them.
I think that is truly amazing. Now, in defense of state governments, it's good that they're not overpaying the legislators, and you want to keep we're in favor of small government. So that is not a bad thing. It's difficult though if you're paying them that for a part-time legislature, and then you have a governor who calls multiple sessions, so it winds up turning into a full-time job.
Right.
That salary is very difficult for anyone as a full-time position, or if they're running a business, they could potentially lose their business because they're here all the time. So it takes a lot of risk to be able to step up and do that. But setting that part aside, not having those the researchers and the people who can understand how to write a bill, how to understand what a new bill means and how it's affecting other parts of the state code, that it's really important information if you're going to vote in an intelligent manner.
Yeah, and the fact that most of these people come with, just the enthusiasm and the just glowing, okay, now I'm here to make a difference, and to become so disillusioned so quickly because you aren't taught, even when you walk in the door, the legislative process, which, I'm just a bill and I'm only a bill and I'm sitting on Capitol Hill. That was a great video, but that's in theory how it's supposed to work. And when you are faced with the reality of the machinations behind the scenes, it's eye-opening and disheartening. Some people become afraid and just go along with, I'm just going to do what leadership tells me. Well, that's where you get corruption. That's where you get the process not working for the people. It becomes about protecting your political machine. And it's a shame that that's been going on for 100 years in Louisiana. It's never been more ripe for a change, though, at least in my lifetime, than it is right now, because Jeff Landry offers great promise. The Freedom Caucus is out there. We made quite an impact this first year. 19 people have never stood up and voted against their leadership, the budget, busting a budget, nothing ever. People back in D.C., when they said, oh my gosh, y'all got all of you and more with you. And it was like, I can't believe it.
Right.
Because usually
Louisiana. In D.C., you're lucky if you get 4 or 5 or 20 to out of 40 or 50 to do what you expected.
It was fabulous.
Yeah.
So it was a real shot in the arm. And when they saw what came at them after they made that vote, and then the people were able to see what happened with the retribution, because the last day was chaos. And when they passed the budget busting bill, like 2 days before sine die here is by constitutional mandate. That's the Latin term for adjourning with no set date to come back. They had to be out June 8th at 6 p.m. Okay. That was a lesson in what not to do in the legislature. They were trying so hard in the day and a half that they had to retaliate against the 19, that they were reading manifests that just said, okay, Bossier City, well, the Bossier City people didn't vote for us, so we're pulling everything. They pulled the repair, this contracted repair of a bridge over the Mississippi River. Okay, they were pulling projects like that without even knowing what it was. They just saw a line item that said for the person they were trying to punish. So they pulled the funding. It was insane. It took 11 days to figure out what amendments affected what part of what bill, not the permanent effect of what the amendment did, just to figure out what amendments went to what page and affected what segment of what bill. It was complete and utter chaos, and it just the shockwaves that went through this state when you had things like $1 million for a dog charity, in the budget, but they took $500,000 out of fixing badly needed roads.
And I think I hope that people, one thing that after having been here for a couple of days, and I've done several different interviews with people in Louisiana now, I hope that the voters understand that if you didn't get the repairs that you needed for your roads and bridges in your community, you can't be angry at the people who voted against that bill. You got to be angry at the people who voted for the bill, who were willing to hose you in your local community and bridges and roads, rather than the people who were standing up for you. The ones who voted no, those 19, they were the ones who were with you. They weren't the ones pulling the bad stuff out. That wasn't them. It's the people wwho voted for it.
Right. They were the heroes in all of this. They stood strong and said, because what people are missing here is that a lot of it is that they ended up spending almost $2 billion more when they busted the caps. And that was money that was because of COVID. And that was money because of a half of a 45-cent sales tax increase that's supposed to sunset in 2 years. Well, they want to spend it all like drunken sailors. And that was an insult to drunken sailors, because it's all on video on the Louisiana legislature's website. You can see that last day, the last hour of the last day is a lesson in what not to do. But most people don't understand that is money that wasn't a surplus we're going to have every year because of some great governance. That was leftover COVID money that wasn't spent, that should not have been then spent. And then it was also that 45-cent sales tax that's going to sunset. So they were wanting to do things that were recurring spending. in this budget.
Right.
So that you're not going to have that COVID money coming in anymore. You're not going to have that 45-cent sales tax. They want to keep it, the big spenders. But it just showed that it wasn't needed in the first place.
Right.
And you've got some real problems in Louisiana. So throwing money at it, as we've all learned, with everything in government is not the solution. Okay? So it was a spending orgy of just bankrupting what was sitting there that could have all responsibly been put into. We have pension funds in this state that we are paying tens of millions of dollars a year in interest alone, that we could have paid off one of them. And they didn't do it. They wanted to spend it on band uniforms for colleges. And, and it was, when you look at what was spent in that orgy after we finally found out, 2 weeks after it was voted on, what was in it, it was shocking, some of the things that they spent on. So it should have been responsibly done. And that's what the Freedom Caucus led the movement to do, was to spend that on debt that would have freed up money every year now that you have to do even more. So it was a real shame, but I'm very proud of the Freedom Caucus for being the agent of change that brought about that vote, that it's going to resonate. And now that we have an incoming governor, prayerfully, if Jesus doesn't come back before this. And
if everyone who's listening actually goes to vote. So if you live in Louisiana, you have to vote, because it's not a done deal until you vote. So vote.
Vote like your life depends on it, because it does. This state's life depends on it. We have people moving out of the state left and right because there's no jobs. It was shocking moving back here, okay? I lived in one of the most expensive areas in the world to live, Washington, D.C. area. My car insurance was twice as much here. It's $2,000 a year for my car insurance here. That's because we don't have tort reform. I know that those are bad words, but you have to have responsibility in anything you do. When I moved here, my house insurance was twice as much. It was $2,000 a year than the most expensive area in the country, one of them. That was stunning. When I moved to Louisiana, I had to pay sales tax again on my car. $1,500 just to get a license plate.
Wow.
That's shocking. Okay. How are you going to get people to work here, move here and work, when the first hit they take is thousands of dollars to register their car? Because if I would have bought a car here, I could understand repaying the sales tax on my car. But that is insane. That is insane. So I have great hopes for the people coming in with the Freedom Caucus, the people that the Freedom Caucus PAC has endorsed. When I saw that list, I went, oh yeah, we got it. We got a great, you can't just join the Freedom Caucus. You have to be invited. And you are background vetted. If you have ever held office, we look at every vote. I'm telling you, one of the strangest things I've ever done was when going through this session with the Freedom Caucus, I had to make an Excel spreadsheet of how every member of the Freedom Caucus voted on every bill. Okay, it's the unity spread, it's called. And every proposed current office holder, I had to do a spread on how they voted. And now they will do all of that before they will look at that and research even further back before they even invite someone to come into the Freedom Caucus. You have to be the ones that are going to stand, plant the flag, and say, take your best shot.
Right. Well, and the fact is, we need that so desperately at the state level, and we need it. We need to know that we're not going to win in Washington, D.C. and have the change that we want to affect in Washington, D.C. if we don't have more people in Washington, D.C. who understand what happens and how the legislative process works so that they can change what's broken.
Right.
And so having these networks at the state level is so very important, because there are kind of two schools of thought sometimes in the grassroots movement and just in constituency world, so not elected official, where it's either you have lifelong politicians or you're just brand new and you've never run for office. Well, someone who's been in office for years does not necessarily mean that they are a bad person or that they can't vote the right way and protect liberty. And learning how the process works at a legislative level so you can go to Washington, D.C. and withstand the pressure in D.C. is so very important. And some of the strongest members in Washington, D.C. of the House Freedom Caucus are people who actually have been elected before. Like Louie was a judge. Andy Biggs he was the Speaker of the House in Arizona. So they know how things are done, and it makes it easier to get there and withstand all of that pressure. So this helps prepare people and sharpens iron.
It's a farm team, and in some respects, for Congress to bring up legislators who understand the process. The left beats us on process every time. We get out there and we spout all of the right principles, but they beat us on process. We have to know how things work, what the legislative tricks that can be played, what's in the bill and how it can be changed. Not, and how we get the changes we want and need in that bill to make it something that's palatable, that's something that doesn't grow government. If you don't know that you can go down to the floor and offer certain amendments or what the process is to throw, gum in the works until you get someone to pay attention, you can't win. You have to know process, and you have to have the guts to actually stand up when everyone's groaning, Freedom Caucus on the floor. That was a big thing, because when someone would stand up with a principled stand, everybody started mumbling, oh, Freedom Caucus. But you know what? That's a badge of honor.
That's right.
It is.
It is a badge of honor.
Yeah.
Is there anything that is the equivalent of the State Freedom Caucus Network on the left? Have you encountered anything like that?
No, I haven't. But the left, they populate the bureaucracy.
Oh, okay.
So it's hard to even, as Donald Trump found out, when you get good policy through, even getting them to enact it at the bureaucracy level.
Right.
So here we have had instances, honestly, where the bureaucracy that's writes the bills here, they're all old lefties left over from the Edwin Edwards days, the joke I told earlier. They will intentionally write bad bills for the conservative issues and the conservative members. So when the bills get to committee, everybody can make fun of them and how they're unconstitutional.
Wow.
And they don't know what they're doing. I mean, that's all intentional.
Right.
But when we have the Freedom Caucus people to look at the bills and to help get bills authored, and they do that at the national level. They will do that for the State Freedom Caucus to make sure that you have a lockdown bill on the things that are really important in your state. And one of them that was really messed up intentionally a couple of years ago was the for the children's being sex change, surgeries on children. We call it the child mutilation bill here. And it was laughed out of committee because they had done such a poor job intentionally of drafting it for the member who was bringing it. So I think it's really important to have professional people,
right,
for these people to count on and to know that their efforts are not going to be belittled, because they can't be. They're serious efforts. And that these people are equipped to do what they need to do. When you have the bureaucracy like the left does, they hold your hand all the way through.
Right.
You don't have to,
right,
you don't have to be on your own. You're not on your own. You got the entire network of bureaucrats helping you. That's not the case with conservatives, because we usually are the ones who are doing, building businesses and, working in our communities and employing people and stuff. They are less likely to go into government. So it's harder.
So what are the things that surprised you the most as you began this in Louisiana?
Well, state government and state legislatures, the way they do, it's completely different than Congress, okay? They actually go from the start to the end and take every bill through a committee. They assign it to a committee, every single bill. what? You know?
Yeah.
That didn't happen in Congress.
No.
Of course, the little, I'm just a bill and I'm only a bill sitting on Capitol Hill. You always thought it did, but it didn't. It doesn't. Here, it's more personal. I mean, you get every bill is read in, and then it's assigned to a committee. Now, whether it's brought up, they bring every single one up, but they do all their little machinations to involuntarily refer it to another committee, and that's how they kill it here. And it's never brought to the floor because it's hung up in committee. So it was just completely different the way things are done here. But it is easier in a lot of ways to get into the face of your person because they're more local, and I love more local government. I wish everything was at the state level, and it was back to just a very few things being under the purview of the federal government, because our individual states have different needs, wants, and desires, but they're all undergirded by constitutional principles. So that's why when you have things like states, they govern marriage, states govern driver's licenses, states govern things that are more personal to the people. But I would argue a lot more things are more personal. We don't need a Department of Education in the federal government. No. It should be state level. And then again, within those states, as we're learning here, it should be parish level or county level if you're not in Louisiana. That is closer to being transparent to the people.
Right.
And so I think that's very important. So that was something that was very exciting, to be here and to be a part of that. People, good-hearted people, down here, really want Louisiana to do better. We're 49th or 50th in economics, in growth, in education, and it's all simply because self-interested people are spending the state's money and doing the things that empower the people who give them money, like the teachers unions. We don't necessarily have that much of a teachers union problem in Louisiana. Mm-hmm. The problem is that we have had bad leadership for decades, and we have not done the things that would allow parents more control and competition in schools that would have better outcomes. Because we have some really, really seriously challenged areas like New Orleans that, how do you deal with that mess? Because they aren't even trying on a local level to have the process empowered by the parents and the people. I know it's much easier to raise your kids when the government does it for you, but you won't like the outcome.
No, you won't like the outcome. But I think that oftentimes it's not so much that parents are looking for the government to raise their kids. It's that the parents are having to figure out how they're going to make ends meet. So if you have a state that is in severe economic trouble, or it doesn't have the major growth that is going on in surrounding states, it's harder for parents. So it isn't so much that they want the school to raise them. They're just doing all that they can to make sure they're providing for the basic needs of the kids. Yeah. And when you don't have a lot of upward mobility, that becomes more difficult for those parents.
Yeah, I mean, I don't want to throw them under the bus, but the path of least resistance when you're trying to deal with those things is usually what happens. Right. And you're not going to like that outcome. No. And I think people were so shocked when they saw what their children were being taught during COVID, when they did online, that it has started something at a visceral level for parents to go, that is not okay.
Don't hurt my kids. Yeah. You're not allowed to hurt my kids. And that's what's happening. They are actually harming kids at this point. They're not protecting kids.
We have a hospital in New Orleans that is transitioning minors through the LGBTQ, and they are locking parents out.
I hope that those kids at some point,
13 years old or higher, the parents do not get access to their medical records. We're going to fix that next year.
It has to be fixed. And then the kids who've been harmed from this are going to have to sue. At some point, they're going to have to sue the doctors and the nurses and the governments and the counselors and school systems who are harming them, because that's what's happening. And I've talked to some of the girls, young ladies now who went through that process and are now back to understanding that they really are girls, and the physical and mental problems that they've been through. All I want to do is I'll do whatever I can to help you, because you have been abused so much. I don't want to be part of the abuse. I will just do what I can. It makes me so angry on their behalf.
Right. We had a few of them come and testify here, and we did actually get the bill through. And it passed. It was vetoed by the governor, but we overrode.
It's good that you overrode it. And shame on the governor.
Yeah, shame on him. Shame. Because these things are irreversible.
Yes.
And you cannot let a 13-year-old child make those kinds of decisions. They can't vote. They can't buy a gun.
They can't drink alcohol. They can't buy Sudafed. I mean, there's so many things that they can't do.
But they can make the kind of decision to alter their physical body in a way that, based upon some crazy notion that they can be another sex, and then you tell them that you can give them a physical appearance of something that they're not. It's not doable.
No.
You will never take a little boy and make them into a little girl, or vice versa.
You won't.
And it's very sad to confuse these children and to be led down that path. So that was one of the things I was very proud of, that actually got through, and we fought through. We forced a special session. It's election year. People were too afraid not to do it.
Wow.
And we got that veto overridden.
That is so good that happened.
Yeah.
And we just need more like that. We need the courageous votes, and the votes that will make a difference, and the votes to get the government out of the way. The government is causing some of these kids, and the policies the government has created is causing these kids to be confused somehow.
Right. Agreed.
And they need to get out of the way.
Agreed. And I think next year you're going to see in Louisiana, if we do get the governor that most of us vote. If we do get Jeff Landry and everyone has to get out there, crawl through broken glass to go vote for him, I will be. Then what we need to do is just some basic fundamentals. Money follows the child in school. I think that's going to be crime here. Crime is out of control. I have a friend. I moved back here, lifelong friend. He has been carjacked 3 times and arm robbed 4 times on the streets of New Orleans.
Wow.
I mean, it is insane that, number one, that he's still alive. God love him. Can you imagine being arm robbed 4 times and carjacked 3 times? If it happened once, that's so impactful.
Yeah. I would move. I'd be like, that was one time too many, going to find somewhere else to live.
No, but that's how bad New Orleans is. Thousands and thousands of cars are stolen every month. It's crazy. So,
and that's part of why your car insurance goes up as well.
That is exactly it. And the rest of it is because of lawsuits and, our billboard lawyers. God love them. They got to make a living. But, we got to look at this realistically.
Right.
About the impact that it's having. So, I think that if somebody's at fault, they should have their socks sewed off, like the doctors who are transitioning children. I'm not against a good lawsuit, but I just think that there are so many things that need to be fixed here, and I think that we have a great opportunity to do it next year, starting with the education, because I'm telling you, when you have businesses looking at where they're going to relocate, when you don't have a good education system for their children, how are you going to attract people to move here?
Right.
And or to start a business here, or big industry to move? They're moving out to places all over the South. Not Louisiana, because we have a Democrat governor. We have had a Democrat governor for 8 years who has completely destroyed literally every incentive for anyone to want to move a business here.
So money follow the kids.
Yeah.
Fix the education problem.
Right.
Crime.
Yeah.
Insurance.
Yeah. Insurance is a huge problem here, because you were talking about struggling to make ends meet. Imagine having a $4,000 a year, and that's with no tickets, no accidents between your house and your car.
Right.
You're paying $4,000 a year in insurance.
It's almost $500 a month.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's a car note.
Right.
Okay. You can't have a healthy just atmosphere when you're saddling people with that much cost out of the gate. How are you supposed to raise a family?
Right.
When you're paying that much just for insurance? So it's not that there aren't reasons behind it. I'm not saying that the insurance companies are coming and reaming everybody. No, there are a lot of things. Hurricanes. There are a lot of things that happen here. But there's also a lot of unnecessary reasons why this, and crime is a huge part of it. So crime is something that soon to be, hopefully, Governor Landry will be addressing strongly. He understands it. He's a former cop. He's the AG. So that will be a big, big, big step forward. And it, a lot of it has to do, we have Soros DAs here, big one in Shreveport, which has now become one of the top 10 most dangerous cities in the United States. We will be looking to be able to enforce the law. And if people aren't going to enforce the law, then there are repercussions.
Right.
Okay. So enforcing the law is probably paramount to that effort. I don't want to speak for Governor Landry, but I know that law enforcement is going to be a big deal. I don't know if most people probably don't know this, but when Katrina happened and New Orleans was so devastated, they found out that almost half of the New Orleans police force did not exist. That's how corrupt it was.
Wow.
Yeah.
They did not exist? So
No,
money, where was the money that paid for?
It was paying people who weren't police officers.
Wow.
Yeah. The level of corruption is stunning.
Yeah.
So, yeah. But no one went to jail for that. Well, the the mayor of New Orleans, Ray Nagin, did end up going to jail, but not for that. There are things that have to be changed here.
Yeah.
And I think that we are finally going to have the people with the knowledge, the experience, the courage, and the expertise to stand up to all of this garbage. Can you imagine? Could you imagine taking a paycheck as a cop and you're just not one? You know what I'm saying?
I just don't.
I don't understand that, Jenny.
I don't get it. I mean, that's
I would be afraid I would go to prison. I'm going to get caught.
Well, that's what happens when people enforce the law. But when the people who are taking the money are the ones who claim to be enforcing the law and they're not, I don't know what you do.
No, yeah, you put them in jail.
Yeah.
So I just think we're about to have a comeuppance here, and it's long overdue. And the people of Louisiana are so good and friendly and welcoming and hospitable, and they work hard.
Right.
We don't need this garbage. We don't need, they don't deserve to be treated this way. And I think it's a lack of information in the legislature. It's a lack of information about, everybody thinks he's a great guy, but no, let's look at, I'm going to show you how they voted.
Right.
That's what we're going to make sure you know about these legislators, because that's part of what the Freedom Caucus does. When we recruit people to run for office and you're running against a fellow Republican, it's because of his voting record. I can't tell you how many legislators came up to me. I can't believe I didn't get an invitation to be in the Freedom Caucus. I'm the most conservative member of the legislature. No, you're not. And they're like, yes, I am the most conservative. You tell me where I'm not conservative. I said, have you looked at your voting record? That's why you didn't get an invitation. Your voting record. That they don't lie. Your voting record doesn't lie.
Right.
So that's our standard. And so we're going to get a new level of candidate, and we're going to get a new level of accountability for the office holder. If you are voting in a way that you are telling your people you're not voting, we're going to show you.
Right.
We're going to show you votes. So
that's very good.
yeah.
So if people want, like the average person in Louisiana wants to follow the voting records, are you guys posting this on a website anywhere for the average person to check it out?
We will be.
Okay.
I got here in like February.
You had to get it all up and going.
I was drinking from a fire hose, trying to break down all the bills before the legislature went into session in April. It was insane. So right now I'm in the process of getting better process in place.
Okay.
Before we have I'm doing the unity spread as I go along now at the end of session.
Right.
I had to go back and do that whole spreadsheet of how everyone voted. That was insane. But so we're getting a better process. I don't know that we'll be doing everybody, but we'll be doing the people who are key players.
Yeah.
People who claim to be conservative and ran as a conservative. I think I'll be paying special attention to those folks.
And maybe even that part isn't as important as just making sure that people understand these are the bills we're watching the most closely, and here's why we're watching and what we're looking out for.
And here's your person who said that they supported this. We got people flat out lying on the.
Well, they're the most conservative people, of course.
But they're flat out lying about where they stood on a bill. They said, I was on that bill. Well, no, you're not. There's two people's names on them, and they're both Freedom Caucus members. Your name is not on it. You did not support that bill. So, I mean, just flat out lying. I'm getting ready to write an article about it on some of them. I'm not kidding you. It's just flat out lying because people don't know where to go and dig on the website and find it. So eventually, we'll have a lot of things there, but we have lafreedomcaucus.com.
Okay.
Goes to our Substack, and we put up our press releases there for now. We will have a lot of different things going on as we process forward. It's going to change. It's going to be a moving, growing entity. I have got people I'm trying to attract to come here from the Nationals. I've talked to you about one of them.
Yes.
And to be able to give that level of professionalism to all different levels of this, because it takes a lot of different things to put an effort together that not only gives the legislature and the support they need, and they can take those vote recommendations and hand them out to their colleagues and say, look, this is why. This is important. That's all one operation. But the rest of it, at least from the Freedom Caucus level, is getting the messaging out and getting the information out to the public on all of that. And that's a whole nother level of thing. That's the ledge and the comm shop and all of the different things. And remember, these people don't have the money to hire personal staff.
Right. And they don't have the staff. So I think what you're doing is amazing. I mean, I think you've already done amazing things, and the opportunity to help inform the constituency in the state and help improve bills so that we help fix what's wrong with Louisiana. It's very important.
Well, there's a separate entity that is the Louisiana Freedom Caucus PAC, and they're doing a lot of the vetting of candidates. You're not promised to be a Freedom Caucus member if you get an endorsement from the PAC. You still have to go through the vetting and the invitation and be voted in by the current members, by the way. But it's incredible. People are already asking for who are your slate, and they go to their website. We get all the time, I need to know who the Freedom Caucus is going to be so I know who to vote for. And we don't know who they're going to be yet because they have to go. If you're elected, you have to go through the process. But here is the people who are made public, and you do not have to be public, by the way.
Right.
And it was kind of advantageous this year. We did not announce; only the leadership announced. And that was Alan Seabaugh was our president and still is our chairman, excuse me. And Beryl Amadei is the secretary treasurer. And one of the guys who is our Larry Freeman, he's running for judge. So he's abandoning us.
Well, we need good judges in this country. So
he's a great guy and really smart. And we're going to miss him terribly. But what we also had the ability to do a few feints and ruses and things because they didn't know how many of us there were.
Yeah.
And so that worked to our advantage. But all of them are out now. They've all stepped forward proudly. I'm a Freedom Caucus member running for office. And of the 39, I think that the Freedom Caucus PAC has now endorsed, that gives an entire, tray of people to go and interview and talk to. Most of those are the new people too. That's not the current office holders. Most of them are not current office holders.
That's really important.
Yeah.
So if you're listening and you live in Louisiana, make sure you're checking that out before you cast your vote on Election Day.
Early voting starts the 30th of September, and it goes for a week, and then we have voting day is October 14th. That is our jungle primary. And the hope and prayer is that some of our really, really good conservative stalwarts can get through. So everybody needs to get out and vote, can get through in that first round so they can get out and help others.
Yes.
Across the finish line.
That's very important.
Yeah. So we need all of our Republicans, our independents, all of our conservatives out there voting, and vote like there's no tomorrow, because there isn't.
Including voting for a very conservative candidate for governor.
Yes. Jeff Landry. Now, I just love Jeff. There's several, candidates I could live with, but Jeff's a unique opportunity.
He is, and he's strong, and he's been willing to stand up.
We've seen him at every level. We've seen him in Congress. We've seen him, Jenny Beth, we've seen him everywhere. And
Yes.
and he has always been the same.
He
and
is.
you can't say that about most politicians. That was why we loved Louie so much.
Right.
Never changed. You could always count on him. You knew how he was going to vote. You knew what he was going to do, because he would tell you.
Right.
And he never changed.
Right. And you may not even necessarily agree. When you have people like that, you may not always agree with the way that they vote, but you can respect them because you understand that they're firm in their convictions. I can even respect people on the other side of the political aisle who are that way. I may not respect what they're standing for, but I can respect the fact that they are strong in their convictions.
Right. If
It's
they
the
believe
people who are just, they just sort of go whichever way the wind blows that
That's
drive
self-interest.
me. Yeah.
Yeah, that's self-interest. And that's what's killing this country right now.
It is.
Is blatant self-interest. Everybody's self-interested.
Right.
But not to the degree that they'd sacrifice everything else in the world to better themselves. And that's who most of these people are. Your Chuck Schumers, your power-hungry Nancy Pelosi's. I would put John Boehner in that category, Paul Ryan. I would put, it's not just Democrats, there's Republicans out the wazoo I would put on that list.
And Peter Schweizer's written great books about this.
Yeah. So, I mean, it's not that it's unknown, but now is the time to stand up and do something about it. We have more information than we've ever had today. I mean, can you imagine when you were starting Tea Party Patriots, if you had all the information that we have today, how much further along you would have been out of the gate? We have no excuses now.
Right.
Okay? Everything's online. So I know we don't have time always to go in and dig through people's voting records. Okay? That's my job. But I am going to get better, and we are, the Freedom Caucus, are going to get better at putting the tools in the hands of the people who care about this country, who love this country, and want to see us succeed, not the ones that are trying to destroy it in any manner they can. I mean, you know that.
Right.
You've seen it firsthand.
Sadly. I wish I hadn't.
Yeah, I know. It's kind of hard to come back from that, isn't it?
It is.
Just got to changes you.
Yeah. And in fact, there are times when I think that I've learned a new level of hell, like a new ring of hell, when I,
Dante.
I'm just like, oh, wow, it's even worse than I thought. Here's another whole layer of it. So, but you can't just get overwhelmed with the bad. You have to understand it exists. And sometimes it's pure evil, what you're looking at, like the child mutilation. Yeah. And then you have to go, okay, I'm going to do everything in my power to fix it. Yeah. And it might just be casting the vote for the right person so that you get the right person elected, or researching it, or making calls to the members of Congress or your local or state elected officials.
Or arming, like we're doing, arming people with information.
Right.
So they know how to make the proper decisions.
Right. And there's so many different opportunities for for activism and engagement. But you can't let the bad discourage you. You have to let it become a force that motivates you for good.
Right. What I think a lot of people have lost sight of by design, by our corrupt education system, we are a self-governing people. Self-governing. And citizenship comes with responsibility. If you aren't out there learning about how you're going to vote and voting and working in the process, then you're not going to have a successful government around you, because in self-governance, it's a representative government. So I'd say pretty much the government we have right now represents the laziness and lackadaisical attitudes of a lot of our people. And we've got to fix that too. Because if you don't step up to the plate to do what you have to do to keep citizenship meaning something, to keep your government reflecting who your people are, okay, you have to do a little bit of work to find out who's going to be that person that's going to do that. Then that's on you too. So it's a process that everybody, and I want to make it as easy as possible for people to get out there and, I like to crawl down in the sewer, find out what's down there. I don't want to take you down there with me. I'm going to come up and I'm going to tell you what I saw. Okay? And so people can make a better informed decision. And I can always explain. I'm not sure the other side can, but we're going to find out.
Well, I'm very glad that you're willing to do that, and you're doing all you can to help explain it and expose it and to educate people.
Yeah.
Connie Hair, thank you so much for spending time with me today.
Oh, I loved it.
And tell me the website one more time.
LAFreedomCaucus.com.
So folks, go to LAFreedomCaucus.com, learn more about what the Louisiana State Freedom Caucus is doing, and be sure if you're in other states to check out what the State Freedom Caucus is doing in your state. Connie Hair, thank you so much for spending time with me today. I'm Jenny Beth Martin. This is the Jenny Beth Show.
The Jenny Beth Show is hosted by Jenny Beth Martin, produced by Kevin Mooneyhan, and directed by Luke Livingston. The Jenny Beth Show is a production of Tea Party Patriots Action. For more information, visit teapartypatriots.org.
If you like this episode, let me know by hitting the like button or leaving a comment or a 5-star review. And if you want to be the first to know every time we drop a new episode, be sure to subscribe and turn on notifications on whichever platform you're listening to. If you do these simple things, it will help the podcast grow, and I appreciate it very much.